I hate mainstream historians and scientists so much. It is absolutely insane. My hatred could not be any more pure. You could not distill this any further if you wanted to. The purity would make a cocaine dealer blush. Alright, so we have another fascinating problem in which more scientific and historical fraud has been unearthed over there in Germany. Now, this article is fairly short, but the reason why I just wanted to go over it really fast was because I keep making the claims that mainstream scientists and historians are completely off their rocker. I mean, they believe in some of the most asinine garbage you can imagine, and you're not allowed to question it. And the reason why you're not allowed to question it is because they hold the authority, they hold the degree, they know what they're talking about, and I'm just a schizo on YouTube, right? So I'm not allowed to question it. And if I question it, then I'm the conspiracy theorist, right? I'm the crazy guy. I'm the guy, okay, you get the point. But here's the problem. We consistently and constantly keep discovering a ton of outright fraud being perpetrated at high levels in mainstream history and science. And of course, for some mystical reason, mainstream historians always turn a blind eye to these kinds of discoveries. And by discoveries, I mean discoveries of fraud. And the reason why is simple. They turn a blind eye because the reality is the vast majority of what mainstream history is based on is just that. It's based on frauds, lies, half-truths, I mean, you name it, man, forgeries. That is most of what mainstream history is based on. So if a mainstream historian were to start to acknowledge all of the problems with history, essentially, they would have to throw out every single textbook that has currently been printed. They would have to completely rewrite the timeline. And of course, many of these people would lose their jobs because they've essentially been lying to the public their entire life. Now, I'm not saying that every historian is a liar. Most historians, I would say 99% of them, have no idea what's going on. They are trusting that the people that came before them did good work and that all of that good work is, based in fact. At least generally speaking, based in fact. This is why you will never see chronology changed in the mainstream. It's because mainstream historians, they just truly believe and trust all the work from those that came before them. But what happens if the historians that came before them were basing all of their research on other people's forgeries and other people's lies? Not to mention their own forgeries and lies. We would have a mess in history, and that is quite literally the problem that we have. And it's like everything in history. I'm not just talking about like ancient history, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. I'm talking about history that's only a few hundred years old. We have such a weak grasp on reality when it comes to understanding our history that it's embarrassing. I mean, historians should be disgusted by what is going on within their field, but they're not, right? They're not. They're paid well to not be disgusted. And of course, at the end of the day, every single one of them have been psychologically conditioned to push the lies. And they push the lies in an ignorant way. These guys don't know they're pushing the lies, by the way. So I just want to say that because I don't want people to think that there's some grand conspiracy in academia by all of these historians that, put on robes and cloaks and go in some back room and start sacrificing small woodland creatures, and they start thinking about ways of how to confuse history. Well, you know what? There probably actually is some people like that, in fact, there are people like that, unfortunately. But the vast majority are not like that. The vast majority are just doing their job. They're spewing out what they've been taught to spew, and that's it, right? So anyway, you get the point. So we find ourselves in a situation to where mainstream history is based on a ton of forgeries and lies. If that's the case, we are required as honest researchers to completely re-evaluate everything that we have been taught, especially since we have all kinds of new evidence to do that anyway. And one of the pieces of new evidence that we have that the mainstream completely ignores is the fact that mainstream people are being called out for fraudulent conclusions. So that's what this article is going to talk about. Now, this article actually talks about two separate fascinating issues. The article is going to cover an anthropological issue as well as an issue with the history of Rome. Now, both are extremely important for different reasons and the same reason simultaneously. All right, I've talked enough. Here, let's start getting into the article and let's see what these guys discovered, and let's go from there. And let's see if we can use this information to do a couple of things. The first thing and the main takeaway that I want you guys to get out of this is just to solidify your understanding that the mainstream historical zeitgeist is essentially incorrect. It's wrong, it is full of forgeries, and all of that crap we were taught growing up, or at least most of us growing up, it's just outright lies, right? We have our entire existence based on lies, and there are people in power right now who are using those lies, by the way, to stay in power. Right? You're not living the same life they're living. They're living an amazing life. They aren't worried about Medicare. They are not worried about food. They are not worried about paying rent. They are not worried about education. These people live a life you will never have, and the reason why they live that life is because the vast majority of the Western world believes all of the lies that they continue to support. Gee, you think somebody in power would want to continue to stay in power? We don't need a conspiracy theory to keep this going. Okay, all right, let's get into the article and then we'll talk crap about it as we go through it. So this article comes from The Times, and it's written by Oliver Moody, and he's a Berlin correspondent. So full credit to this guy. And good stuff, because he's calling out the garbage. The article is titled,
Archaeologists may have deliberately misidentified Neanderthal skull.
Investigation launched as up to 39 human bones could be part of one of the most significant scandals to trouble the world of German archaeology in decades. In 1997, an archaeologist poking around in the long dormant volcano crater a few miles west of Koblenz in West Germany found a substantial chunk of human-like cranium. Judging by its enormous thickness, he decided it could hardly be Homo sapiens. With considerable fanfare, he and two colleagues announced that it had not only belonged to an aging male Neanderthal, but was also quite possibly the oldest specimen of any kind of human yet discovered in Germany, from roughly 165,000 BC. Don't you love that? Right from the get-go, these two guys are trying to lay claims to some kind of an amazing find. Like, they just have to have an amazing find. It can't be just an average find. It has to be crazy, right? It can't just be a normal Neanderthal skull find. It's got to break some kind of record. Right there, that should have been a red flag to everybody. You guys ever notice how all of these anthropologists, they never find just like a standard Neanderthal? They're never like, well, yeah, I mean, it's just a normal Neanderthal, one of a billion, whatever, it's a find. We expect to find billions of them. It's never like that. They are always like, look at this find. I think it's like 10 million years old. It must be the oldest one that has ever been found. And of course, when somebody says, oh, cool, can I test that, please? They say, no, you can't touch it. I'm sorry. It's too precious. You just have to believe me. How do you like that psychology? That literally is how anthropologists work. I mean, that's like the entire science. It's hilarious. Okay, let's keep going. It turns out, however, that the famous Neanderthal of Ochtendung, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, was neither a Neanderthal nor especially ancient. It came from a modern human who lived in the 7th or 8th century AD, a contemporary of Charlemagne or the Prophet Muhammad, rather than the woolly rhinoceros or the saber-toothed tiger. By the way, Charlemagne doesn't appear to have ever been a real historical character. That's a whole chronology thing, but I just thought I'd throw that in there because I hate mainstream historians and I love talking crap about them. Okay, let's keep going. Yes, I am here to destroy your entire worldview in under 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep this under 20 minutes. Let's see if I can do it. All right. The case is now at the heart of what threatens to become one of the most significant scandals to trouble the normally sedate world of German archaeology in decades. The state of Rhineland-Palatinate has announced a systematic investigation into suspicions that one of its senior archaeologists deliberately manipulated many of his findings, including at least 21 human skulls or skull fragments that were dated incorrectly. The total may be as high as 39. I'm actually willing to bet it's probably a lot higher than that even. Among the discoveries it calls into question is the location of the Battle of Rigodulum in about AD 70. The Roman historian Tacitus describes how the Germanic Treveri tribe revolted after the death of the Emperor Nero and fortified a position on high ground near the river Mosel, only to collapse like ruins under attack from Roman legionaries. This is fascinating, and I'm glad I ran into this article because one of the issues we have in chronology is the Roman Empire. And what I should say is the fact that right now mainstream historians say that there are 3 different Roman empires. It's starting to look, or it's not starting to look, it seems like it's been solidly proved that there has only ever been one Roman Empire. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy. We'll do a show on that relatively soon. But this is the kind of stuff that we need to look at, because if this battle has been incorrectly injected into the history, that means that claims such as what I just made, that there is only one Roman Empire and there was never 3 Roman empires, will start to have even more evidence for it. Now, the other thing that these guys mention, of course, is that this battle is described by Tacitus. Don't forget, Tacitus's works are largely considered forgeries, and they're largely considered forgeries by the mainstream too. Not just, alternative researchers and historians doing really good work. No, even mainstream historians have admitted that much of what Tacitus wrote is absolutely fraudulent and made up. To make matters worse, a lot of Tacitus's stuff, or I should say not worse, but more confusing, a lot of Tacitus's works might not only just be forgeries, but some of the stuff may have actually happened. It's just that whoever the hell wrote Tacitus, remember Tacitus is just a pseudonym. We don't know who the hell Tacitus is. All of his manuscripts were magically found in the Middle Ages, so don't forget that, right? We have no idea who the hell Tacitus is. But anyway, a lot of the works, when they were created, might have actually been talking about events that did indeed take place, but they did not take place, for example, in AD 70, like the Battle of Rigodulum is talking about. The Battle of Rigodulum could have took place in, say, 1370, for example. It gets crazy, and we'll talk about all that later. But this is the kind of stuff we need to pay attention to, because if these historians right here are creating forgeries or are creating fraud to substantiate some of the mainstream historical timeline, we have to pay attention to this, and then we ultimately have to rewrite it. So when we look into the Roman Empire and we start to, get rid of 2 of the empires, this is more evidence in that direction. Okay, let's keep going. In 2015, it was claimed that a trove of Roman artifacts, including coins and fragments of weapons, showed that the battle had taken place near an ancient settlement called Rigodulum. According to Rhineland-Palatinate's Interior Ministry, however, the underlying archaeological database has since been found to be inadequate. We have reassured the public, and especially the academic community, that we will keep reporting on the results of the investigation to prevent further damage to research, said Simone Schneider, the ministry's state secretary. The authorities have not identified the employee in question. How do you like that? Isn't that crazy that this is the kind of people that we have writing our mainstream history books? This is the kind of person, or this is the kind of organization that gets funding from people at the top to make sure that all of us have no idea what's going on. All right, I'll leave a link in the article in the description, and well played to the author of this article. I want to thank that guy. That's cool. I'm glad to see stuff like this. See, we need more of this stuff. You know, for example, the anthropological side of this, I mean, right there, that's the kind of challenge that we need to make on that kind of evidence. Because right now, anthropologists have human history spanning out like, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of years, and they're talking about all this garbage, and we can't prove any of it, but we are just supposed to listen to these guys? I mean, that is insane. Okay, all right, you get it. Okay. Under 20 minutes. Not bad.